Over the 57 years of their marriage, she constantly pulled him out of difficult situations, whether it was an escalating political climate or personal troubles, offering her support and gently steering him in the right direction. Despite her outward reserve, Clementine possessed a strong will and was a driving force in the life of the famous British Prime Minister. "The greatest achievement of my life was that I managed to persuade my wife to marry me," Winston Churchill once confessed. We recall the story of the woman who had an enormous influence on world politics, even while remaining in the shadow of her husband. Clementine Churchill's life is a story of success built upon the ruins of a troubled childhood. She was born into an aristocratic family, yet loud scandals were a constant presence in their household. Clementine's parents suspected one another of infidelity and argued almost daily, openly, in front of their children. Eventually, her father, convinced that he was not the children's biological parent, packed his belongings and left the family forever, abandoning them without any means of support. Clementine was barely 6 years old at the time. Financial hardship was accompanied by social difficulties. Young women of Clementine's aristocratic background would normally make their social debut in their early teens. However, her mother feared that her own damaged reputation might harm her daughter and therefore kept Clementine confined at home. Thus, a young woman blossoming before everyone's eyes found herself unwillingly imprisoned within 4 walls. In a 2002 interview, Clementine's daughter recalled that this period was one of the most difficult in her mother's life. While enduring social isolation, Clementine faced another tragedy that left a permanent scar on her heart. At the age of 16, her beloved sister Kitty died of typhoid fever. Afterward, her grief-stricken mother sent Clementine to live with a wealthy aunt. Saying goodbye to her childhood home, the young woman did not yet realize that she would never return there again. Clementine's aunt turned out to be a society lady and a kind-hearted woman who gave her niece not only a roof over her head, but also the opportunity to present herself in the highest social circles. The young woman began attending social events and invariably made a very favorable impression on those around her. In 1904, at one of these balls, 19-year-old Clementine was introduced to 29-year-old Winston Churchill. A member of the British Parliament, he was already known for his boundless political ambitions and for his remarkable escape from enemy captivity during the Second Boer War. Nevertheless, he did not make much of an impression on Clementine at their first meeting. Winston behaved very shyly and, in the company of pretty young women, merely blushed and remained silent. Clementine sensed that he liked her, yet he did not even dare to invite her to dance. "Winston simply looked at me," she later recalled. "He did not say a word and was very awkward." Clementine and Winston did not meet again until 4 years later at a dinner party. This time, however, the man showed greater determination. Over the following months, he courted the young woman who had captured his interest, and in 1908, he finally asked for her hand in marriage. Clementine accepted his proposal. The couple had much in common. Like his beloved, Winston had endured a difficult childhood. He never felt warmth or support from his parents, and for a long time the only person close to him was his nanny. Yet the young man possessed a strong inner drive and was determined to succeed at any cost. He was constantly in debt, but at the same time built a respectable political career. At a young age, he had already made his way into Parliament, where he earned the respect of his colleagues thanks to his military exploits. Clementine was also ambitious, but in keeping with the social conventions of the early 20th century, she projected her ambitions onto her capable and successful husband, skillfully guiding him from behind the scenes. She once said that in her youth she would have liked to become a fully fledged statesman if she had been born a man rather than a woman, her biographer Sonia Purnell recalled. Clementine never became a statesman herself. Instead, she played a crucial role in shaping his rise. She steadfastly supported her husband even when he risked nearly everything in his pursuit of becoming prime minister. This included the moment when he insisted on voluntarily fighting in the trenches of the First World War to atone for the catastrophic miscalculation of the Dardanelles campaign, which resulted in the deaths of around 120,000 British soldiers. Clementine gave her husband her blessing and saw him off to the front, courageously advising him not to come back too quickly. This decision helped to save Churchill's reputation. She advised him on complex political matters and supported his allies. She was always by his side when Churchill was overwhelmed by bouts of prolonged depression, which he referred to as his black dog. Clementine and Winston had 5 children. The couple's youngest daughter, Mary, spoke of her childhood as an exceptionally happy period of her life. At their family estate, Chartwell, dinner parties were constantly held, attended by many famous figures, such as Charlie Chaplin, and lunches often turned into 3-hour discussions on art, during which Winston would recite poetry and Shakespearean sonnets. Being his child was an enrichment beyond any doubt, Mary said. Clementine of Courtship, of course, loved her children as well, but she did not spend as much time with them as their father did. For Mother, father's needs and interests always came first, and second, and third, her daughter explained. Nevertheless, judging by the fact that Mary later published a very sincere and love-filled book dedicated to Clementine, she harbored no lingering childhood resentment toward her mother. Mary lived a long life and became renowned as a talented writer and philanthropist. The fate of the other 4 children, however, was far more tragic. Marigold Churchill died at the age of 3, an event that deeply traumatized both Winston and Clementine, who blamed themselves for her death. The couple's only son, Randolph, once attempted suicide, while their eldest daughter died of a drug overdose in the 1960s. Finally, the middle daughter, Sarah, never managed to find happiness. She became a mediocre actress, abused alcohol, and married 3 times, each time to men whom her parents considered unsuitable matches for her, as his black dog. Undoubtedly, their children's problems also affected the relationship within the couple. In the 1930s, Clementine and Winston were balancing on the brink of divorce. There is a well-known incident when, during one of their arguments, Clementine hurled a plate of spinach at her husband during dinner. In 1935, rumors also began to circulate about an extramarital affair between Clementine and an artist named Terence Phillip. Nevertheless, the turbulent times in their marriage were weathered without irreparable damage. On the eve of the Second World War, Clementine once again became the devoted wife who consistently supported her husband. Even when they were forced to spend long periods apart because of Winston's demanding schedule and his constant business trips around the world, they maintained an active correspondence. "I tell Clemmy everything," the British Prime Minister once admitted to Franklin Roosevelt. The President of the United States was so struck by this confession that he even recorded Churchill's words in his diary. And of course, when Winston's health seriously deteriorated in 1943, due to heart problems and pneumonia, Clementine urgently flew to Carthage to personally oversee his treatment. She remained constantly at his hospital bedside, monitoring his condition. Once he recovered, she did everything possible to ensure that he returned to duty as soon as possible and continued to lead a nation shaken by war. It is also noteworthy that, while supporting her husband in his professional life, Clementine did not always share his political views. For example, she was a convinced liberal and repeatedly criticized the Conservative Party, which was led by her beloved husband. She was the only person who dared to openly challenge Winston Churchill's opinions, and, most importantly, the one whose words he actually heeded. It was under his wife's influence that the British Prime Minister embarked on a number of social reforms, including those aimed at expanding women's rights. Clementine even jokingly referred to herself as her husband's political conscience. She also managed to do for Britain what her husband, often too hot-tempered and uncompromising, was unable to do himself: to begin restoring relations with France and the USSR. As a matter of fact, she felt particularly warm toward the Soviet state and actively assisted it during the Second World War. In 1941, she organized a fund to aid the Red Army, making the first donation herself. In addition, Clementine insisted on sending British medical equipment, prosthetic limbs, surgical instruments, and medicines to Soviet soldiers. She celebrated Victory Day, May 9, 1945, in Moscow. A few months later, Clementine embarked on a 6-week journey across the Soviet Union, from Leningrad to the North Caucasus, and was personally received by Stalin at the Kremlin. According to legend, Winston Churchill once complained to the Soviet ambassador to the United Kingdom, "Ivan Maisky, my wife has completely become Sovietized. Could you appoint her to one of your councils? Truly, she deserves it." While Winston Churchill delivered his famous Fulton speech at home, a speech that foreshadowed the Cold War, his wife pursued a very different, conciliatory policy. Winston would only come to appreciate Clementine's foresight years later, in 1950, when the USSR had become a dangerous nuclear power. At that moment, he realized that his wife had been right from the start and radically changed his rhetoric. Towards the end of his political career, Winston Churchill was once asked, "Who would you like to have been if you had not become who you are?" The politician paused for a moment, then calmly replied, "If I had not become who I am, I would gladly have become Mrs. Churchill's second husband."